Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Loreweek. Before we do anything else, I just want to mention something. I've got three things before we actually get started here. I'm going to start getting organized by the beginning of Loreweeks here, guys. First and foremost, gentleman John Sagan died last week, which sucks. I know that sounds pedantic, but as a very, very good friend of mine once said, death sucks. Whatever else you say about death, about someone dying, it really tends to boil back to that basic point. Death sucks. There has been a bit of a joke that I tend to forget our good friend Candace Ordo. It's one of the gentlemen he voice acted. I can't actually say that's true, because Candace Ordo was awesome. And Solidus was pretty awesome too, so it sucks that he has passed. So a quick moment of silence. To try and talk about something other than that for a moment, I've decided to start off my lore weeks with what is quickly becoming a new feature, which I'm calling the Gray 17s. I'll make a logo for it at some point in the future. The idea is Gray 17s are comments that are ridiculous, stupid, or otherwise hilarious on my YouTube videos. And I've decided to start sharing these with you guys. Here, now that we can go and get that music going now. I'm going to start collecting these to share at the end of the week. I've only got one for you right now, because I just came up with this idea like yesterday. So, this is in regards to my early video of Regalia of Minimonarchs. And I quote, all lowercase a's. This review is 5 hours long! Caps. Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. You got 8 minutes tops to tell me if this game is worth my time or not. I don't want to hear your life story about how you got the game or what sandwich you're eating at the time or whatever. Show me the game, make it expressive and to the point, please. Also, I don't need to see video. I don't need to see video of you talking about it. This video is longer than 2 of the Lord of the Rings movies. Gray 17, ladies and gentlemen. That one made me laugh quite a bit. I'm starting to get more and more comments like those every week, so I'm going to start sharing them with you guys. Hello, Crowclaws. Don't quite recognize that name. And also, I definitely don't recognize Red 5 standing by. Well, I mean, I recognize the phrase, but welcome to my stream. Shoutouts, don't be a stranger. We're going to be kind of going back and forth a bit, but as I say to just about anyone for just about any of my streams, don't be a stranger. I love talking, chatting, responding, etc. How's the volume on the audio, by the way, guys? Just to make sure we're at good audio balance. Because I like to be at good audio balance. It's very important. Need to be professional. Actually, I got one other one here. This one just came in this morning. Not as bad, but this one still amused me. So in my video about Thief, my rumination of Thief, I mentioned how Dishonored is the modern thief. So his response was, Dishonored's the modern thief? No arguing? Uh-huh. The Rageaholic and I would like to have a word with you. I quit watching by then. Looks like I don't have any other ones at the top of the list here. I don't really remember these. I tend to share these on my Discord and then walk away. Anywho. I have no idea who Rageaholic is. I'm assuming he's some kind of YouTube personality. Speaking of which, who wants some news? We will be playing Overwatch, assuming people are there, Lorimbus. By the way, for those of you who know, we'll be playing Overwatch today. And if we end up either running out of people or not having enough people for Overwatch, we will switch over to the number 2 thing, which was Civilization 6. So, I threw together something this morning. It's this right here. I'm just going to leave it up there for a moment, and indeed for the rest of the day. I'll be throwing together a small video which will be going live this coming Tuesday to explain what the hell's going on with CBS in more depth and our options with it. But I thought I'd let you guys know what's going on, just as a kind of thing, because this elicited rage within me. CBS, I spent several days really pouring my heart into a video. Now, it's kind of amateur looking, if I'm being honest. I had some issues with the green screen effect, and, well, that's it, actually. That's the only thing I would really nitpick about it. But I did spend a fairly large amount of time making a finale video for Star Trek Voyager. It's about 2 hours long, and I'm actually really pleased with it, to be completely honest with you. It contains your guys' votes for top and bottom 5, as well as some things that are like, hey, you know, oh my gosh, this is what I consider to be the weird episodes of Voyager, my own personal bottom 10 and top 10, you know, a few other things like that. Just kind of going through the whole thing. Like I said, it's about 2 hours long. Last week, CBS said, wait a minute! We own that video! And so they blocked it in all countries. Now, I don't care if people make copy wrongs against my videos and say, hey, we own the ad revenue to that video. I get that stuff all the time. But actively blocking it in all countries kind of defeats the purpose of having a frickin' video. So I'm like, okay. For the first time ever, I decided to contest it. I pushed back and was like, no, I know what fair use means. I even did a refresher and looking it up in legal terms, not just layman's terms, to verify that I have the right to contest this. And I did. The problem is fair use is not actually a law. It is a legal defense. So what I was employing it as was as a legal defense. No, I have the right to this under fair use, you know, because of this, because of this, because of this, blah, 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 blah. This morning, about half an hour ago, actually, just after I had gotten off of my treadmill, I got down here and was like, hey, all right, let's check emails before I get ready for Loreweek this day. And hey, I've got one that says they had enforced the copy wrong, which means that I have a few choices now. I'll talk about these choices. Well, I guess I can talk about them now, but I will also throw out a video Tuesday just to make sure every Voyager viewer gets it, because I want to get some weigh in. It boils down to this. Give up. Video never goes live, at least not until I finally have the money to build my own server and start hosting my own videos locally. So that's for option 1. Option 2 is to try and contest it. Now, if I contest it, this would be a legal contestation, which may or may not actually go to court. In fact, it is most likely it would not go to court. However, there are only 2 consequences of legally contesting it. 1, the copy claim gets removed and I'm fine. Or 2, I get a copyright strike, like an actual strike. Now, I'm not going to give you the full list of everything that happens when you get a copyright strike on your channel, but it's pretty bad. It would probably screw over my channel's ability to function for however long it takes until that goes away. Assuming that ever goes away, I'm not actually sure. It's bad. So I'm not doing that. I'm not risking the possibility that YouTube will actually understand what the concept of fair use is. Third option, this is the weird one. Run it through a filter. Hear me out. I don't mean a filter, that's the wrong word. Basically, I need to compress the video. It's too big. It is 2.7 gigs. It needs to be under 2 gigs. And then upload it to Dailymotion, which only allows uploads of up to 2 gigs. So the video quality would be worse, and it would be up on Dailymotion. This is it. These are my options. Issues like this make me think more and more of the appeal. I mean, for years now, YouTube has A, been getting worse, and B, restricting my ability to create as a designer. But some people are like, why don't you ever have gameplay in the back of your things? Why do you always have you in front of a pre-rendered background? It's because of crap like this. And I'm pretty much at the point now where I have decided I'm going to split from YouTube. The only problem is money. And right now I don't even have money to have my own place, so that's not happening anytime soon. But in the ideal future of when I can afford to actually have my own hosting services, I'm going to do that. But that can wait. Those are our options right now. So, hashtag screw CBS. I have so much news to talk about this week. This is probably going to be short, because I don't have much to say about each of these, but I've decided to save some of my more long-term comments for a future Loreweek, for a Loreweek when I don't have a billion pieces of news to talk about. So why don't we go ahead and just go down the list. How many of you ever played Alpha Protocol? Oh, and by the way, in response to people, I will be looking at other options that are not Daily Motion in the hopes of trying to find something to get the video live. So anyways, yes, we're already past that zone. Alpha Protocol is in my opinion, a good game. It was a very ambitious game. It was probably most hampered by being very buggy, as most Obsidian games tend to be. But it was, in my opinion, a genuinely good game. It was one of the more branching games I've played of late, and allows you to do, not just play how you want, but decide your own path through the story to a fairly large extent. It is still all roads lead to Rome, but imagine instead of, like, doing this to go to Rome, it's like, you can do this to go to Rome. Which I liked. And as usual, it had good writing. It's an Obsidian game, of course it had good writing. Recently, Sega teased in preparation for E3, which is coming in just like 2 weeks, I think, at this point. By the way, yes, I will be covering E3. I don't know to what extent. We'll see. It might just be a stream. I don't actually know. But regardless, we will be covering E3 in some manner or another this year. Just making sure everyone's aware of that. So yeah, they teased something in response to E3 that Sega's bringing back, old IPs or something like that. And Obsidian responded to that tweet. No, I'm not, Magister. It's summer. Pay attention, Magister. Come on, man. This has been true for weeks now. So, this is it. Like, this is the full extent of the actual facts. Sega is like, we're bringing back stuff, and Obsidian's like, woo! Maybe Alpha Protocol 2? I have no idea. I really don't. Hopeful. I would love an Alpha Protocol 2, especially one that is a little more polished, I think is the word I'd use. Alpha Protocol is an excellent example of a game that has some excellent meat, but not a lot of good flavoring. Kind of like the series I'm going through right now, actually, the Longest Journey series, where you have to kind of mentally get past the tepid voice acting to get to the excellent writing. Like, they have fantastic lines, but the lines are being said in a fairly monotone voice, kind of like, you know what I mean? That's kind of what I feel about Alpha Protocol. Great meat to that game, but not really the most amazing presentation. So, a properly presented Alpha Protocol 2, day one purchase. Not even questioning that. Speaking of wild speculation and rumors, who wants another wild Actually, this is not wild speculation or rumors. This is actually definitive fact. Nintendo's making a Zelda mobile game. I will pause because the first thing I want to know is everyone's reactions to that. So, for those of you not aware, Nintendo has 2 mobile games so far. Mario Run, which was fun, but had some flaws, which I'm going to discuss in a moment. And then they made Fire Emblem Heroes, which is actually pretty good. I'm a little surprised by that. Fire Emblem Heroes is basically a Fire Emblem light game. It does have a story mode, which they're updating over time as it comes out. It does have PvP, because everything has to have PvP these days in mobile gaming. And it does have, events and leveling and gathering heroes and all that fun stuff. And it has a lot of the usual flaws of mobile gaming as well. I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of this. I would personally say, in my experience of, earlier this year I was going through literally hundreds of different mobile games trying to find some that were good. Fire Emblem Heroes is at least towards the top end of that list. And honestly, so is Super Mario Run. I wanted to talk about Super Mario Run really quick because it's relevant to Zelda. What I think they did best with Super Mario Run was they made it so that the level design informed the mechanic. In other words, you cannot stop running right, unless you, hit a wall or bounce off the wall. Now, if you bounce off the wall and do, a hover jump as Yoshi, you can go to the left and stuff like that. But my point is, they actually designed the level to allow you to with that in mind, with it capable of, doing tricks like that, or it's hard to explain, but as I showed when I exploration to that was probably one of the things I thought they did best. The downside of Paper Mario Run, there's 2 big downsides. First is the fact that they haven't really done anything with it. They came out with it, and then they haven't added anything to it. More levels. First and foremost, more modes of play. Like you've got the versus mode where you play a ghost basically from another player, and then you've got just playing the levels yourself for coins and for leveling up your kills, and that's like it. Did I say Paper Mario Run? Oh, whatever. Super Mario Run. How delayed is my chat right now? God. They need more content. I keep waiting for them to update the game and add more to it so I could get interested in it again. Because I had fun with what was there. But right now, my niece plays it more than I do. She actually loves playing it, by the way. No joke. She actually very much enjoys playing Super Mario Run. She can play it. She can actually beat the levels herself. And it's a good way to get her used to interactive media and video game in general. So at the very least, it's worth it to me for the fact that she's enjoying it. But come on, guys. The second flaw is very important with regards to Zelda specifically. I told you I'd bring this back to Zelda. Let me reiterate that the only fact we have about Zelda Mobile is that they're making it. They are making a Zelda Mobile game. We know nothing else. Anyone trying to tell you anything else is wrong. I actually just checked up on that about 24 minutes ago. I just checked the timer just to verify. I just verified that. There's no news. Okay? They're making a Zelda mobile game. Here's how things comes relevant to Super Mario Run, though. Super Mario Run is a game where it's like, alright, play it, woo, and you get the first 3 levels, woo, and then you run into a paywall. The moment you run into that paywall, you have to pay $10 for the rest of the game. Now, whether or not a mobile game is worth $10, that's another debate, which I'm not going to get into. I personally think a lot of mobile games are way overpriced, the ones that charge you up front. But nevertheless, $10? I mean, really? But that's not the issue. The issue is that you play the game and then run into the paywall. The problem with this is not the fact that you pay for the game once and it's done. In fact, I actually prefer that method. The problem is they didn't really demonstrate that well, and they probably shouldn't have done it that way to begin with. People like me knew that was coming. If you remember, when I was streaming it, I played the game, turned off the stream for a second to pay for the game, because I knew it was coming, and then went back to playing it, right? Here's the problem. From a purely marketing perspective, most people nowadays who are playing mobile games aren't aware of that concept of as Zawan points it, the shareware concept. So, if they had charged up front, or been way more obvious about the fact that you only get the first few levels for free, I think this would have been smoothed over better. But the figures show that Super Mario Run has not actually been selling that well. Compared to not only other mobile games, but just Nintendo games in general. Fire Emblem Heroes, for example, has been blowing Super Mario Run out of the water, just to name one example of that. The relevance to Zelda, again, we don't know what it is, but ultimately it's going to boil down to 2 possibilities. Either you're going to pay for it, or it's going to be like Fire Emblem Heroes, where it's got microtransactions, right? I would prefer a Zelda mobile game to be good, first of all, but I would prefer to pay up front. And if they're going to do that, in order to get as many people as possible, in order to ensure that lots of people are fully aware and cognizant of what's going on, pay right up front. None of this, hey, play it, oh! Because I don't think people really understand the shareware concept. And this is just speculation on my part, but Lord knows one thing that I have been shown in my own aspect of running this show is that I need to not give people too much credit. As much as I hate to say that, I mean, there's quite a few people that I can look at and be like, hey, yeah, you know, I can just do this and people will pick up on it and use their damn brains. But the harsh reality is that there's too many people who just don't understand things. They don't think about it, or they don't want to think about it, or they don't have time to think about it, and so they don't. You need to be way more obvious, especially when you're marketing something on such a gargantuan platform as mobile gaming. My opinions. I have no idea what they could possibly do with a Zelda mobile game, by the way. I really don't. We'll see. I'm not even going to speculate on that. You are 19 minutes late, SJ. Next point. Paradox is making a new game. No, I don't mean Battletech. That game has been in production for about a year now. I am excited about it. No, I don't mean the Mars game, which is actually being produced by another company that Paradox is publishing. I mean Paradox is actually making a new game. and John Schaefer is working on it. Now, for those of you who don't actually recognize that name, John Schaefer has been involved in quite a few of the Civilization series. Civ 5 comes to mind immediately. Unfortunately, as with so many of these news items that I'm going to be going through today, I don't actually have news for you on this, other than the fact that, hey, guess what? They're making a new Paradox game, and John Schaefer is working on it. I don't have anything else to say, but I don't think I really need to. This is actually something that I've been talking about recently, because as much as I enjoy Stellaris, and I do, Stellaris just hit its 1-year anniversary. I love Stellaris. EU4, I haven't actually gotten to really get into. Crusader Kings 2, I love Crusader Kings 2. Victoria, I actually didn't like Victoria that much. Hearts of Iron, let's not go there. But I, at the very least, tend to rather enjoy the grand strategy format that they've got going. So I've talked about this recently. It's like, oh man, I can't wait until our next Paradox game. You know, if it's EU5, or Crusader Kings 3, or Victoria 3, or whatever. Now, when I brought that up on stream, most people assumed it would be Victoria 3. Because from what I understand, Victoria 2 is the oldest one of the bundle that are currently going. And if I'm not mistaken, Victoria 2 hasn't been updated in a while. Oh, cool, Mandartin. That'll be awesome next week when we play more Stellaris. But regardless, the very idea of a new Paradox game is interesting and exciting to me, and I am hopeful and looking forward to it. I don't actually have much else to share about this. Again, like I said, we're just going to be kind of going down the list here of the announcements, because there's been so many announcements this year. I just kept adding to the list and adding to the list. Let's talk about the next one, which is this one. For those of you not aware, so I gotta talk about this one really quick. How many of you know what Harvest Moon is? I assume several of you do. Now, let me just go ahead and say really quick that Stardew Valley is awesome. And I recommend Stardew Valley. Harvest Moon was a series of games that started on the SNES with a game called Harvest Moon, which was a new type of game at the time. Nowadays, it's actually become an entire genre. Yes, it's the farming game that's actually good, as opposed to Farmville on Facebook. But yeah, there's actually... God damn it, chat has been terrible all frickin' week. Ugh. That's just going to be happening all day, by the way. That's just a thing. Nothing I can do about it. Nothing I can do about it. So, Harvest Moon, yeah, so I was actually about to talk about that, Volvo, because Story of Seasons, that happened, I actually have the dates up here, right here. 2015 is when that was fully resolved. 2 years ago. They had to start shifting it over to calling it Story of Seasons rather than Harvest Moon, because Natsume owned the rights to Harvest Moon and weren't actually making Harvest Moon games, but the people who are actually making Harvest Moon games, Nintendo and Rising Star? No. I actually don't remember the name of the company. Oh, Xseed, there it is. Xseed, Nintendo, and of course, Marvelous Interactive wanted to keep making Harvest Moon games. So they started calling it Story of Seasons. Now this is significant because there's a new Harvest Moon game coming out. It's actually being called Harvest Moon. It's coming out on the Switch, and I don't remember what else. PC is the other one, though. It's actually coming out on the PC as well, which is very strange for many different reasons. And I'm not actually sure what to make of that. Yes. I am at least partially excited about it, but at this point I'm getting orcs speeding up humans. I'm at least partially excited about it because, you know, woo, maybe, like an actual Harvest Moon game coming out. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be bad. But at the same time, I already have a Harvest Moon game on the PC. It's called Stardew Valley. But what Zawan says is the really interesting part. This is a Nintendo game coming out on the PC. To my knowledge, this is a first. I could be wrong about that. Now, it's not Nintendo first party, because Marvelous Entertainment, or Marvelous... The Marvelous Group are the ones actually making the game. But still, a Nintendo game coming out on a PC... Oh, nope, I'm sorry, this is the second time that's happened, because Bayonetta was the first. Wasn't it? Either way, this is new ground. We're broaching new ground here. I am hesitant to say if this is actually indicative of what might happen in the future, but seeing Nintendo exclusives come out on the PC, I mean, that's interesting. That's very interesting. And I gotta be honest, I would not mind Bayonetta 2, Darkrai. Sorry, let me rephrase that, Bayonetta 2. Although I thought Bayonetta 2 was out on Steam as well. I could be wrong about that. I guess I could just pull up Steam. Hang on, I gotta pull up Steam real quick. Hang on. Making me look stuff up, God. I have a group invite from the New Republicans. Okay, so Bayonetta 1 is on it, which is Sega, and it was not a Nintendo exclusive. Also, Vanquish is coming out on PC too, that's nice. But my point is, okay, so apparently I was right. This is actually the first. We're getting a Nintendo exclusive on the PC. I gotta be honest, if Nintendo started releasing their games on the Switch and 3DS and PC, I'm cool with that. Any complaints? I mean, really, as weird as this sounds, as long as the ports are good, I don't see any downsides here. Anybody? I mean, am I missing something on this one? I'd probably still play several of these on the Switch, primarily on the Switch, because I have a Switch, but I have no idea. It's just such a weird thing to happen. They're making a Zelda mobile game and a Nintendo exclusive, or what was a Nintendo exclusive, coming out on PC. I got nothing. I got nothing. It's just there. You mean like I did with FF13, Zoan? It's funny you say that, Mandartin. I mean, one thing I will say is that, you know, for all the many, many complaints that can be levied at Nintendo, and myself is included, I have many complaints about Nintendo as a corporation, the games they make tend to not be on that list. Like, overall, a large percentage of Nintendo games tend to be good, in my opinion, of course. You know, the actual games they make. Shrug. I don't have anything else to say about that. Let's go ahead and talk about something I have very little to say about, which I feel bad about, because I feel like people want to tell me more. But again, so, they're making a Witcher TV series on Netflix, which I'm sure you guys are already aware of, actually, because anybody who's heard about that has probably already heard about that. Now, I did some digging on this one, because I wanted more news, and guess what? We have no news! That's just a trend today, isn't it? Here's an announcement. No news, no information, no details. But they're making a Witcher TV series. Don't know if it's live action. Don't know if it's cartoon. Don't know if it's CGI. Don't know if it's some combination. Don't know if it's based on the books. Don't know if it's based on the games. Like, basically we have no knowledge of, like, anything that's going on. Now, as Formosan points out, this is not the first Witcher TV series. I have seen a little bit of the original Witcher TV series, and I found it to be rather lackluster. That plane is really close. Wow. So, I've seen some rumors about it being based on the books, but I couldn't find anything, like, 100% verified. And I know the author's consulting on it, but the author also consulted on the game, so that doesn't mean a huge amount. I don't know. It will most likely, statistically speaking, it will probably be based on, I did, Valvedrix? What was I going to talk about there? Oh, no, I remember. I decided not to talk about that this week. I have too many other news items to talk about this week. Anyways, yeah, so I don't... It is most likely based on the books, which, I will be 100% honest, automatically lowers my interest level, because I'm not even a fan of the first two games. But, woo? I'm not really sure what to make of this. This is weird. We've entered a weird era of television, where people are just trying new shows all over the place, and since the very concept of how networks work has changed so fundamentally, it's hard to really talk about it other than just to discuss how they can do things that they couldn't do 10 years ago, you know? Now, let's go ahead and talk about another TV thing. Well, actually, before I go into that, I just want to say this. The idea of a Witcher TV series, at least on the surface of it, is interesting to me. Because I've often said, and this is funny, that television is an excellent medium for storytelling. It is literally episodic storytelling. Now, my point is you can tell much longer stories, and you can go far more in-depth. You can go far closer to the ground level viewpoint in a television show than you can in a movie, or you can in, well, a lot of different works actually, because you can tell this episode, you know, that kind of a thing, right? It's an excellent medium of storytelling if you ignore making a television show. It's the second plane that goes by. Now, that's relevant because the main reason, in my opinion, that television is not one of the better mediums for telling a story is because actually making a television show is one of the most nightmarish things in creating fiction. Like, you think making a game or a movie is bad, you should really look into what goes into making a show and all the bullcrap you have to put up with constantly just to try and keep that show coming out. Constantly being limited, constantly having issues with actors or directors or executive meddling or meddling of your own producers or bad writing or strikes or just every single issue constantly coming up. And of course, the ever-present threat of cancellation. For those of you who don't remember, Deep Space Nine, just to name one example, this was under a near constant threat of cancellation for 3 years. And they were constantly struggling against that. It's not fun. So, we'll see what they do with it. Either way, I just wanted to mention that really quick. Speaking of television, no, we're not talking about that yet. Taking my timestamp. They're making a Dark Crystal show on Netflix. I'm pausing here to see how many people even know what the Dark Crystal is. It's being done by the Jim Henson Company, in addition to other people. Yep, and they're actually using puppets. It's going to be a prequel to the Dark Crystal. And, yeah. I tried to look into this. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any direct information on this, because I'm curious how many of the Farscape people, the people who actually worked on Farscape, are working on the Dark Crystal. Because, in my opinion, they had a really good crew behind Farscape. Now, you might be thinking, what the hell does Farscape have to do with Dark Crystal? For those of you not aware, Farscape was put forth by the Jim Henson Company. I can't remember what they were called at that point in time. But, you know, the Muppet people. It's one of the reasons they used live-action aliens, and it's one of the reasons that those live-action aliens were incredibly well-designed and incredibly well-animated. So, yeah. So either way, if for no other reason than to see the Muppet people, you know, the Jim Henson Company doing more work, I'm happy about this. Now, I never actually liked Dark Crystal. Go ahead and hate me, it's okay. I get it all the time. What's Covenant, Warwager? Go ahead and hate me if you must. I never liked Dark Crystal, but I am, again, still very happy to see those people getting some work and being able to do more things. So that is kind of awesome. And I could mention all the things I just mentioned about television and the production thereof, and the reality of what that means, and blah, 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 blah. But I already talked about that, because we just talked about the Witcher show that they're making. Oh my god, stop! Go away! It's like, oh my god. There. What is with all these planes flying close to me? This is ridiculous. This never happens. I have more television shows to talk about. What's our timestamp? There it is. So I got our first real trailer for Star Trek Discovery. I want to make this clear that everything I'm about to say is stuff I had kind of prepped before the Voyager thing happened. Remember, this happened this morning. this whole issue came up this morning. So I'd already seen the trailer, and I'd already formed my opinions of it. The screw CBS thing does not have to do with Star Trek Discovery. So Star Trek Discovery looks like crap. I'm not particularly excited about it. I know this is a weird thing to point out, but one of the things I've started noticing more and more, especially after really going in depth into both Voyager and in Babylon 5, is directing. I've really started noticing what directors do with positioning, blocking, camera angles, lighting, effects, that kind of a thing. I like that. You know, I like paying attention to that kind of a thing. I bring this up because the thing I noticed more than anything else with the trailer... Oh, it's gone, Zoan. It's nuked. I didn't get an actual copy. Just watch the beginning, Zoan. Go watch the beginning of the video. I'm not going to repeat myself. The Star Trek Discovery trailer, if you've seen it, is some of the worst directing I've seen in a long time. It's right up there with the second and third Bourne films. I mean, no offense if you happen to like those films, but the directing of those films was dog crap, in my opinion. Shaky cam! Not knowing where to put people, so you have no idea what's going on. Cut. You know, that's not good directing. That's a mess. That's basically vomiting on the camera for a few minutes. No, bad. It doesn't need to be boring and still shots, but for God's sake, don't do this! And so, there's three things in particular I kept noticing with the Discovery thing. First of all, they kept doing weird sweeping shots. Second of all, they kept doing this. The Dutch angle, for those of you who know what that is. And I wouldn't have noticed it because the Dutch angle... I don't even know what that is, Darkrai. The Dutch angle is something that you can use to good effect for very specific purposes, but you only really tend to notice the Dutch angle when it's overused, which brings me to the trailer, which is just half the trailer. In fact, I should have actually counted. A huge chunk of the trailer was like this. Just... Yeah, Battlefield Earth Syndrome, that's exactly right. It's like... And it just kept getting weird, and occasionally it would do this. Sometimes the angle would do this, in the middle of a single shot. Why? I'm so confused. I also... Wait, hang on. Is that the... That's reversed. That should actually be the other way around. Shouldn't it? Ah, whatever. I'll just keep it as is. Then there's the fact... Oh, right, Darkrai. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you for reminding me. I knew there was something I was missing this morning. I do tend to plan to talk about that, yes. I plan to talk about Galaxy Quest, the show. Thank you for reminding me. So, I mean, the directing is all over the place. And it might be a new director, but honestly, if I'm being 100% blunt, everything I've been reading about Discovery, the show Star Trek Discovery, indicates that they're just kind of rushing it through to hold on to the rights. I know I've talked about this before, so I'm not going to cover it in full depth, but basically, a company has to do certain things to legally retain rights to an IP, to franchised work. And this has been done many times in history. The Amazing Spider-Man 1 is probably the most recent example I can come up to right off the top of my head of a movie that came out for only the reason of ensuring that they retained the right, that Sony retained the rights to Spider-Man movies. So... And we've seen this before with shows, too. Most of the shows that do that don't actually come out. They just release a pilot, and then they say, yep. I don't know if Discovery is going to be completely as bad as most of those. However, I will say that everything I have been reading about the production, about the behind-the-scenes, about the money and the time and everything that's going into the Discovery show is indicated that they're basically just putting this together to maintain the rights, and that's it. So it's very likely that they have thrown some inexperienced people and not given them a big budget and thrown it out there for the purpose of holding on to the rights to the Star Trek as a television franchise. Now let me say something really quick. Kefka is buzzing me today. Seriously. Let me say one thing really quick. I want this show to be good. I actively want Discovery to be a good show. Like, it would be wonderful if I am wrong. And then it's like, oh, dude, this is great. You know how wonderful that feels? I know that sounds weird. Do you know how wonderful that feels to be wrong about something like that? I will give you 2 examples of me being wrong about something and it being awesome. Super Mario RPG and Metroid Prime. I looked at those games when they were coming out and saying, this is going to be pathetic. They're not going to do anything with this. A Mario RPG? What kind of garbage is this? How can you do a first-person shooter Metroid? I was so wrong about that. And it was so awesome. Those games are among my favorite games of all time. Now, both of those games sit in the top 100 list. Yes! I want to be wrong about Discovery. However, it's probably going to be more like Andromeda. Because, and I know a lot of people liked Andromeda, and that's fine. You know what? I'm happy that people liked Andromeda. I didn't. I found it to be very boring. I found it to be very aggressively average. So I look at Discovery, and it's like, God, please let me be wrong. I have yet to see anything as of this point in time. Right now, I have exactly 0 reason to think it will be good. I'm not even going to talk about how ugly the Klingons look. I mean, I personally think that these Klingons look terrible. Ignoring the fact that they shouldn't look like that because this is set in the prime timeline. I mean, I hate to nitpick this, but I know Star Trek pretty well. This is set just a few years before the original series. Therefore, after Enterprise. Enterprise is when they had the augment virus hit them, which smoothed out the forehead ridges. That wasn't cured until after the original series, before the movies started. Technically, STO actually covers the recovery of that. It's a pretty cool questline, but anyways, moving across the point. So all of a sudden we have ridged Klingons who look ugly, who are the bad guys, because you can't have a Star Trek anything without Klingons being the bad guys, am I right? I mean, what do you think this is, Star Trek? I'm sorry. I'm being negative. I got nothing. I got nothing. It looks like an episode. It looks like a show. I mean, I don't even mind more action in my Star Trek. I actually like more action in my Star Trek. You know, I get really tired of the argument that, oh, you just want boring, stupid, dumb stuff, that if action is included, that you automatically dislike it because you're just a boring old Star Trek geek. No, I love good action. I love good action that has a point. I love good action that informs either the plot or the setting or the characters. I've said this so many times. What is Star Trek to me? Star Trek to me is characters. And yes, Zawan. It's a little bit of a thing. Anyways, I got nothing else to say. It's whatever. Here's hoping Discovery will be good. It won't be. I'm sorry. I hate to predict that, but that is my prediction. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. Good script with bad presentation. Well, that sounds familiar. We were just talking about that earlier. We just talked about that with Alpha Protocol. So, there's another show that got announced. God, there's so many announcements that happened this week. Orville. Now, Orville is being pushed out by Seth MacFarlane. Now, Orville is basically Galaxy Quest, the show, in a way. I shouldn't say that. That's actually completely not true. That really isn't. So don't take that. Don't quote me on that. Please don't quote me on that. That's actually wrong. Orville. That's true, Sean. Orville is an attempt at a science fiction parody show based heavily on Star Trek. And it has been influenced by Galaxy Quest, as Seth MacFarlane himself has admitted to. I've seen the trailer. A lot of people have seen the trailer. And, okay, here's where I admit something that's going to make people hate me. As much as I really like Seth MacFarlane the person, I don't find him funny. I don't like his style of humor. That's all. I mean, it's just not for me. You know, I don't find Family Guy amusing. I don't find the movie about the bear funny. I don't enjoy his type of humor. That's just me. So when I watched the Orville trailer, it's that really awkward feeling when you feel like you should be laughing, but I wasn't. The only thing that made me chuckle was when he ran through the slime. That was the only thing that actually caught me. I was like, ah, okay. So I'm not exactly super excited about Orville, but I'm still going to at least tangentially support it because, as I said, I'm actually a big supporter of Seth MacFarlane himself. Seth MacFarlane himself, for all of his flaws, is a pretty stand-up guy, a total geek, and someone who actually supports creating art rather than creating a product. Now, that may or may not be a farce, that may or may not be a mask he wears, but at the very least he is actually doing things like creating art and creating things. Probably my favorite examples of this is actually the recent Cosmos show. For those of you not aware, Seth MacFarlane was really heavily involved in the financing and producing of the recent Cosmos show, the one with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Took me a moment. Huge props to MacFarlane for pushing into that. Of course, he's not the only person who made that show or gets credit for it, but the flat reality is that he threw his all into that because he wanted to contribute to the substance of the universe. Not to make money, not to make a product, because he wanted to make something great. So, we'll see. Wait, what? And yes, let's hope this is not another Firefly, because this is another show. This is another science fiction show on Fox by Seth MacFarlane. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about my next point. God. By the way, if you haven't watched Cosmos: A Space-Time Odyssey, it's the one with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's the recent one. I highly recommend it. While they do get a little too political at times, to be blunt, there's a few too many times where they state a lot of facts and a lot of science, but they also pretty much freely and openly put in their own bias and views at certain points. That's pretty much the only negative, however, that I can point to, and even that's a nitpick. I still highly recommend the Cosmos show. It's some great stuff. You should watch it. Let's talk about The Crew. The Crew is a game that came out on PS4, and I believe that's it. And if you haven't watched the original Cosmos, then what the hell, dude? The Crew... Cosmos, sorry. The Crew is a game on PS4 that I actually rather enjoyed. The Crew is an open-world driving game, and to my knowledge, one of the very, very few open-world driving games that have come out. Excuse me, it is also on PC next. I played the PS4 version. Sorry, that's why I called that. The Crew is a good... It's in my opinion, a good game. Not great, not amazing, not fantastic. The Crew's fun. It's a game where you just drive around and you can do PvP races, or you can get involved in like trying to bring the cops into someone else, or they've got like long distance like drive from New York City to Los Angeles. You can do all sorts of stuff like that. The fact that you're asking me that question, Richie, and I'm here to answer it, should answer your question for you. That's all I'm going to say about that. So The Crew... MacFarlane has nothing to do with Firefly, but Family Guy was canceled on Fox early, and Seth MacFarlane worked on that. And then it's a sci-fi thing related to Farscape, etc., etc. Anyways, I liked The Crew. So the relevant point here is that they're making a Crew 2! Thank you, Crystal Amphibian. I'm glad you liked The Witcher 3 Revelation. They're making The Crew 2. I am at least partially excited about this. I am at least sort of enthused about the fact that they're making The Crew 2. The biggest flaws with Crew, in my opinion, were the fact that the story was bad. I mean, there was a story arc, but it was actively bad, in my opinion, and detracted from my enjoyment. And there's some challenges that are just a little bit... And the fact that it has to be always online was kind of irritating as well. There's no reason for that. There's no reason for the forced online integration in a game like that, in my opinion. But it was a game that I very much enjoyed just driving around, and so I'm at least partially excited about The Crew 2. I'm at least somewhat excited about the possibility of there being a sequel to that. Speaking of which... Did you know they're making a Pathfinder RPG called King something? God, I can't even remember the name of it right now. King something. It's being done... God, hang on. Where's my notes? Where's King something? Here we go. King something. Kingmaker. That's it. It's going to be called Pathfinder Kingmaker. Now, they say this is the first PC game done in the Pathfinder system. I'm not actually sure if that's true or not. I'm not really sure what to say on that, so shrug. But nevertheless, it's coming out. Woo. I'm pretty excited, because not just because Avalon's working on it, but because it's a Pathfinder game. It's being done by a studio called Owlcat Games, which I believe is new. I don't think they've done anything before, so I'm not sure who's working at them other than Avalon himself, of course. Now, the stated features on the game are... it's going to be set in the Stolen Lands, for those of you who know where that is in the Pathfinder setting. It's going to be very heavily focused on companions. Big surprise. There's going to be a lot of development of your character, specifically from a gameplay perspective, and you'll be able to establish a kingdom within the Stolen Lands, claim new territory, build towns and cities. I'm not sure what to make of that last point. On paper, that last point interests me more than anything else. You know, it's the same reason why I loved having my keep in Neverwinter Nights 2, you know, or the keep in Pillars of Eternity. Usually, when that comes out, it's just like a little side thing, which is kind of neat, but doesn't really mean anything. So we'll see if they actually do anything with the kingdom-building side of things, because they can't actually just full-out put a 4X game into a RPG game now, can they? That would be crazy, having multi-genre games. Apparently, it is based... I was going to say, when I looked up Kingmaker, I found a few other older things that were not this game. So, yes, real quick, for those of you who know where Pathfinder was a bunch of people who ended up working at a company called Paizo, who said, you know, 3.0 is cool, but we could do more with it. And so they made Pathfinder, which is it's a much more rules-heavy 3.0 Dungeons & Dragons. If you've played Dungeons & Dragons 3.0 or 3.5, you probably could just switch over to Pathfinder like that. All you'd need to do is memorize some of the new things. But otherwise, it is a much more in-depth, much more complex, again, much more rules-heavy version of standard D&D. So that's cool. I'm with that. I actually don't like Pathfinder myself personally, but on the flip side, I've also never really run a Pathfinder game, and I have never played... Oh, no, that's not true. I have played in one Pathfinder game in my entire life. That's when I was at the convention a couple years ago, where I've told a few stories about. So either way, nevertheless, I am excited about this. We have, of course, no real information. That's just the theme for today. No news, no information about what's going on. Just, hey, they're coming out with a new game. Here's what it's called, and here's like the 3 bullet points we know. Holy moly. What else is coming out? I want to talk about... right, okay, where's my timestamp? 53. They came out with a game called Deadlock for Battlestar Galactica. Now, for those of you not aware, this is just my opinion, of course, all of the Battlestar Galactica games thus far are not good, to put that as nicely as I possibly can. Not super interested in them. Not really a lot of high quality on display. Shrug. This is another attempt at making a Battlestar Galactica game. We'll see if it's actually good. It's set during the actual original conflict, before the show. Before the new show, to be more clear. And they're setting it off. I haven't actually played the board game, so I can't comment on that one. They are setting it, so they're setting it before the show, during the actual primary war between the humans and the Cylons. And it's going to be homeworld style. Now, I'm not sure if there's really been any games that have come out since Homeworld that have been Homeworld style. And so, even though I'm not a particularly huge fan of the Battlestar Galactica setting, or the show, or anything, the mere fact that it's a new Homeworld game makes me go... For those of you who don't actually know what I mean by that, Homeworld is a fully 3D... just for you, Veligix, is a fully 3D RTS. Space, obviously. It's basically Star Wars the game, if you were actually doing the space battles. And it is an awesome game, with flaws. I've done several streams of it recently, and I hope someday to stream Cataclysm. So yeah, I'm excited about that. As usual, we have no real news. I'm telling you, it's a trend. It's just announcement, announcement. I feel like I am actually E3 right now. Here's this, and this is coming out, and this is coming out, this is coming out. Gameplay? No, I don't get to show you gameplay. This is coming out, this is coming out, this is coming out. Speaking of games that are coming out, anybody ever played Magicka? Or Magicka 2? They're both PC games. No, I was never a fan, Sean, so I have not seen the original, and I've seen some of the original, obviously, to determine if I'm not a fan, but I have not watched all of the original, and I have certainly not seen the new one. Magicka, for those of you who are not aware, is hard to describe. It's a top-down game, and you control a dude who can cast spells and whatnot. So they're coming out with a game called 9 Parchments on the Switch, which is Magicka. Now, already my interest level is a little bit higher. Magicka and Magicka 2's biggest flaws, my opinion, were that they were a ridiculously crappy, buggy mess. The gameplay was good, the humor made me chuckle more than once, but they were so buggy. To this day, Pax and I have never finished the first game together, because we're physically incapable of doing it. It is that buggy. We have never been able to really get that far in Magicka 2 because of bugs, and they've never really gone back and fixed those bugs. Oh, also, Magicka 2 was so poorly optimized, I was having trouble streaming it. I was having trouble streaming it on my computer. Yeah. So, there's a new Magicka game called, what was it again? 9 Parchments, coming out on the Switch. The humor is also very hit or miss in Magicka, I've noticed, because sometimes, even for me, sometimes it would make me laugh quite a bit, and then other times I would just be kind of like watching the joke, like, okay. But we have to remember, he's not a vampire. That is very important. It did make me laugh more than a bit. I will freely admit that. So, hey, woo, another Switch game is always nice. We'll see if it's any good, because one of the other points of Magicka I enjoyed most was playing it multiplayer. I gotta be honest, if I had never played Magicka with Gary and with Pax, I probably would never have actually played it all the way through. It is playing it with my friends that really made the game fun for me. The multiplayer made it enjoyable. I think that's all the... Oh, hang on, we've got one more game announcement. Don't worry, this is a minor one. As weird as that sounds. And by minor, I mean it's actually gonna lead into a discussion other than just announcement. Yeah, it is. There's a lot of reference-based humor, too. Magicka is overflowing with references. So, Destiny 2 was announced, and is going to be on the... I'm going to say this very particularly, is going to be on Battle.net. I've been pretty negative about Destiny, but most of my negativity towards Destiny goes towards not the people who actually made the game. The marketing of Destiny was a gargantuan mess of flinging money in a giant pit. I have talked many times recently about, hell, in the last couple of years, about how people are wasting money unnecessarily. Destiny is one of the poster childs of that. The game itself had some issues, but for all accounts was basically average. You know, it was not the most amazing game ever, but it was not actually a bad game. I'll get to that, Crow Claus. So, Destiny 2 is coming out. Now, by all accounts, Destiny 2, for everything I've seen, and I've discussed this with a few people I know who have played Destiny extensively, from everything they've seen about Destiny 2, it seems to indicate that Destiny 2 is Destiny as it is now. It's just, like, it's basically an expansion pack. Like, so what I mean by that is Destiny, when it came out, had a lot of issues and a lot of flaws, and there were certain key critical features that were basically lacking. Move forward a bit, Destiny now has fixed and polished off a lot of those issues, and now they're making Destiny 2, which is basically that game. Like, there's nothing new. The only things that were listed, and this is according to my friends, the only things that were listed as new for Destiny 2 are things that were previously behind paywalls in Destiny 1. Certain things you couldn't do in Destiny 1 unless you actually signed up for, I forget what it's called. It's the Sony service where you pay $15 a month just to have it or something like that. So that stuff is going to just be open rather than behind a paywall, at least by all accounts thus far. I do have to admit I am very amused by some of the listed features of Destiny 2, which I'm not going to quote word for word. 4K resolution support. Okay. Uncapped frame rate. Cool. Full mouse and keyboard support with custom key mapping. That one makes me laugh. Why is custom key mapping a feature? Text chat. Adjustable field of view. Detailed PC settings screens. And 21:9 monitor support. Word for word. Copy paste here. I mean, it basically sounds like they're saying, yeah, forget... It feels to me, just gut reaction, that they're saying, pretend Destiny never existed. We're coming out with Destiny! Like they're pretending that this is the first launch of Destiny. But let's talk about it being on Battle.net, because that's the real news, if I'm being blunt. So, first of all, they're calling it Battle.net. That is actually, I think, a key critical point of what I'm about to discuss. They're calling it Battle.net. Now, for those of you not aware, it's not actually called Battle.net anymore. It's called the Blizzard app or something like that. Hang on, actually, I don't remember what it's called now. Do I have it up right now? I need to have it up for Overwatch, so I might as well fire it up real quick here. Yeah, sorry, 0 points, Corwin. What is this thing called? Yeah, the Blizzard app. I'm right. The Blizzard app. So they changed it to the Blizzard app, and they had a whole announcement about that, and they had the listing their discussions and why they were changing it to the Blizzard app, and blah, blah, blah. And then this announcement comes out, like, last week, just a few days ago, really, and they say, hey, Destiny 2 is coming out on Battle.net. Just keep that in the back of your mind, okay? Now, obviously, Activision Blizzard is the name of the company, the umbrella company, and the reason this is significant is Activision and Blizzard, aside from for economic side of things, aside from the money, have basically been completely out of each other's hair the entire time. Activision hasn't really done anything with Blizzard, and Blizzard hasn't really done anything with Activision. The two are, in most ways that matter, still two separate development studios. The fact that they're trying to put a game from one studio onto the platform of another is interesting. It is not necessarily a bad idea, I want to make that clear. There's nothing necessarily wrong with them doing that. There's nothing necessarily bad with that. I mean, Battle.net is, let's be honest with ourselves, a fantastic free platform for multiplayer gaming, with the only exception of the fact that it doesn't fully support cross-country stuff. That's the one flaw in Battle.net. And yes, I'm going to keep calling it Battle.net because everyone just calls it Battle.net. We've been calling it that since the 90s. Come on, guys. So, I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me, but it's weird because that means we're going to have two MMOs on the Blizzard app. Why? It was good, Jason Barr. I recommend it. A review will be coming out in about a month. Kefka is still dive-bombing me. He's not happy that he wasn't in World of Final Fantasy. Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying WoW is being shut down, but I have to speculate. Because in my opinion, there's two possible general types of reasons why this is happening the way it's been happening. First of all, they had this planned months and months and months ago. And remember, two different development studios, right? And I have this theory that these two studios are not really communicating. So this studio, Blizzard, decided to go ahead and revamp everything and change things over to the Blizzard app, and is doing a lot of stuff under the hood, which they've been doing for the last few months in order to change things over. The Activision studio over here is like, God, we're going to put this out on Battle.net, it's going to be great, and is basically unaware of any of that, and so effectively in ignorance then decides to push this forward with the particular marketing slant that they've been doing in order to attach one of their games to this game, and this is probably being done by people above both of these people who are trying to do this in order to add more visibility to Destiny 2, because for all of Destiny's support, for all the people who enjoyed Destiny, the harsh reality is that Destiny did not sell nearly as well as it needed to. And Destiny, so financially speaking, Destiny was not a huge success. Whether it made money or not, that's a little more debatable. But it definitely was not the kind of success they needed it to be. So attaching Destiny 2 to Battle.net, okay, makes sense. Here's the other theory. How many hundreds of people do you think maintain World of Warcraft right now? I want you to think of this from the perspective not of us, not as the perspective of players or gamers or people who are interested, but there are many, many people who are working on World of Warcraft, I know. Yes, Legion has been a success. The recent, it was just a few weeks ago, the recent, I forget what they call it, where they sit down with all the investors and discuss what's going on. Legion has been doing well. Oh, it's well more than 20 at this point, so on, which is the point, actually. Of course chat's broken. Oh my god. Anyways. So, quite a few people are spending quite a bit of time and money keeping WoW the way it is. There's a lot of support staff. There's a huge number of support staff of the actual coders, developers, the art department, the writers, the directors, the voice acting, the animators. There's a large number of people who are still producing content for World of Warcraft and maintaining World of Warcraft. It is a large number of people, and there's a large amount of money going into it. Now, see the beginning of the episode, Lord of Mordor. I'm not going to rehash it. Now, from our perspective, Legion's great. Well, I shouldn't say that. From my perspective, Legion's great. And I know quite a few people who think Legion is doing very well, which is awesome. And Legion is financially a success, even from their perspective. It is doing very well. So it's not like they're not making money on it. But I have a horrible suspicion that the people in charge of Activision Blizzard, in other words, the umbrella company, the people who are not actually attached with Legion, the people who are not attached, who are not attached with Blizzard, not the people who are attached with Activision, the people who are above both of those people who are actually the ones making the decisions, okay? I have this horrible, horrible feeling that those people are looking at and then saying, well, that's a lot of money and investment being spent on something that isn't really giving out a equivalent percentage. I need to come up with a term to describe this. I've brought this up when it comes to mobile gaming in the past. Because, let me put it to you in fake numbers, okay? Let's say you spend 1 to make 5 in a mobile game, or you could spend, let's say 4 to make 15 to make a real game, right? Yes, biased, I don't care. In other words, percentage-wise, you're not making as much of a return on investment with the real game as you are with the mobile game. So yes, they're making money, and this is provable. As of the last quarter, they are provably making money. WoW is doing well right now. Blizzard is doing very well right now. But this is relevant to WoW because I have a really horrible feeling that they're looking at that and saying that's not a good enough margin. That's not a good enough return on investment. We need a higher percentage. So why don't we compete with ourselves, push the new MMO, and slowly remove, like bit by bit, several companies have done this in the past, basically remove people working on the old product, one by one, in an attempt to push the new product. This has actually happened with MMOs, too. This has also not gone particularly well with MMOs. Asheron's Call to Asheron's Call 2 comes to mind. EverQuest to EverQuest 2 comes to mind. There are several examples of this where they have basically pulled support from an older game to try and push a newer game, and it hasn't gone well. I hope I'm wrong about this. Legion, my opinion, is good. It's not as good as Mists of Pandaria, but it is probably the best it's been since then. I know that's not saying this because it's just better than Warlords, but still, I like Legion. I like a lot of what they're doing. I think they're doing a lot of good things with Legion, and a lot of bad things with Legion. I want the story to continue. I hope I'm wrong. This is the second time I've said this today. I hope I'm wrong. So who out there plays Dota 2? That's actually an interesting analogy to go to. You shoot one foot so that you get stronger in the other foot. That's not a bad analogy. Now, I didn't like Dota 2. Nothing against anybody who liked it. It just wasn't my thing. Heroes of the Storm was the MOBA that I ended up going towards. there are two developers out there. I've actually decided not to name names, but there's two developers out there who have made Dota 2 clones on the phone. Okay, they are, again, I'm not going to name names. I'm not here to give them free press. However, Valve decided to push a copyright claim against them because they are Dota 2 clones almost literally. If you've seen some of the images of these games, you would actually understand what I mean by that. It is astonishingly one-to-one, aside from the fact that it's like a cartoon chibi version of the characters. It's the same damn character, same damn design. So, in fact, here, let me just... Is that... Here, let me just go ahead and show you one of these here. This is not the best example. Yes, I know. I know. I already rebooted the chat. It'll come back whenever it comes back. Give me a moment, guys. Hey, chat decided to come back just as I said that. Of course. I have to give me a minute to find it. I should have renamed it. I'm just going to leave that up there, though, while I'm looking for this. There it is. Okay, here's a direct image from one of the games. One of the two games I mentioned. I'm going to make this nice and big so you can really see this here, okay? Now, I don't know how many of you have played Dota on Warcraft 3 or Dota 2, but do any of these characters look familiar? Like, say, Sylvanas on the far right there, or the Succubus type, or the Ragnaros lookalike, or the Knight's Saber, or the Naga, or the Tauren, wielding a giant totem. The dwarf with the thing, the Jaina, Miss Proudmoore's thing there. This is a straight up image from the game, okay? So when I say clones, I mean this pretty directly. These are straight up clones, chibified from Dota 2. Okay? Like, you can see it. I don't even need to explain this. Let's move this to the back here. I'm just going to leave that up there so you understand my point. So, Valve is like, dude, and goes after them legally. Now, what's funny is the company then immediately turned around and said, no, you can't sue us for that. That was their immediate response. You can't sue us for that. Now, this is actually getting kind of complicated, but it boils down to who owns the rights to these characters. Because Dota 2's characters are based off of a mod from Warcraft 3, which is technically owned by Blizzard. There was actually some legal issues between Blizzard and Valve back in a few years ago, 2012. Back in 2012, there were legal issues between Valve and Blizzard because of how much Dota 2 was borrowing characters from a Warcraft 3 mod. Now, I point this out because Blizzard has sat back on this for some time. They've been, after that legal issue came up, they came to an agreement and said, yeah, go ahead. I don't want to paint Blizzard in a good light. It was actually a fairly weird legal battle. I don't want to get into it. It was a mess. But they did come to an agreement, so Dota 2 actually has the capacity to do this. See, here's where things get weird, because when Valve goes after this random companies, who, again, I'm not going to get into names, their argument, and I'm going to pull word for word here, is that because the original creator of the mod would eventually evolve into Dota, EUL had released it to the public, and the lore and characters are fair use for anyone to use. They're not actually owned by anyone copyright-wise. They have become public domain. So, these companies who made this copy-paste clone game, mobile game of Dota 2, at least as far as characters go, excuse me, the game itself isn't Dota 2 copy-paste, they motioned for a summary dismissal of Valve suing. The dismissal was thrown out, because of course it was, but now things get complicated. Because now they have to determine the question of legal abandonment, which is a particularly complicated issue, legally speaking. And to be honest, again, I don't actually want to get into the full legal complexity here. It's not like real life where things you can just be, oh yeah, you haven't done anything with that in 10 years, it's gone. No, there's a whole issue with legal abandonment. However, part of their argument, part of the argument of this company's legal defense, is that Blizzard owns the right to the Dota 2 companies. That is companies' characters. Blizzard owns the right to the Dota 2 characters. That's part of their legal defense. If it's going to court, now to explain what I mean by that, some people don't actually fully understand this. There's actually quite a few layers of legality when it comes to how things progress. Going to court is basically the second to last step. The only step past court is appeals, and appeals is a very specific category. Most people don't understand how appeals work either. Again, I don't want to get into this. So, court is effectively the last stage. Everything that has to happen to get to the point where you're actually going into a courtroom and actually sitting in front of a jury and a judge and arguing your case, that's the final step, other than appeals. So this has gone that far, is the significant point I'm trying to make. This is now going to be sitting in front of a jury, this case. I hope to God Valve wins this, because this will be a monumental mess if the other company wins this. This will be a cluster. Copyright, ladies and gentlemen. I know that's just a recurring theme on my show. I swear I don't want it to be. I never want to talk about copyright again. I would love to never bring up copyright or copy wrong ever again. That would be awesome. Anyways. Yeah, what Shadow Machine is one of the many reasons why this would be terrible if the other company wins. Not really, Valvedrix. I mean, guys, BioWare's new IP is probably going to be a service game. That's my prediction. Just putting it down. I've already said this in chat. I've already said this a few other ways. So I'm just putting it on video format. I predict BioWare's new IP will be a service game. That's all I'm saying. Moving on. I mean, if you want me to talk about that, I will. Do you want me to talk about that, guys? No, service, not serves. I know I slur my words a little bit. You really... Alright. Hang on. So, BioWare's working on a new IP. We don't know many details about it. I know. Recurring theme today. So, they're making the new IP. Yay. It's mostly the Mass Effect team, as in the real Mass Effect team, not the team that worked on Andromeda, who are working on BioWare's new IP. Let me explain what service game means, okay? The best explanation I've ever heard for this is that if I was to sell you Final Fantasy VI right now, or let me actually use a better example, Mass Effect 1. Let's use something you guys probably actually know better than that. If I sell you Mass Effect 1, I'm selling you a product. It's not literally physical, but it is a tangible thing. One-time purchase, boom, done, transaction over. Your interaction with me has basically ceased to be, unless there's issues or problems with the product, right? It's the same as if you buy an apple from the store. You may be able to go back to that store if the apple's rotten and has worms in it, or you may be able to, you may go back to buy more apples in the future, but aside from extraneous circumstances, purchase, done, that's a product, okay? A service game is pretty much the exact opposite of that. We sell you a game continuously. We sell you the service of the game. This would be more like going to a mechanic, for example. Yeah, they may actually be doing things that are giving you function. They may be literally giving you parts or pieces or whatever, but the actual the thing you're actually purchasing is what they're doing with your car. Or Netflix, that's actually another good example. MMOs are service games. Just about any multiplayer-focused game is a service game. Team Fortress 2, for example, was a service game. It arguably doesn't qualify anymore because it's free, but, when they were still selling it. Overwatch, service game. These are service games. You don't actually own the game functionally because you can't actually use the game without the service. Now, service games has also blurred a little bit in recent years because games that are reliant on DLC or microtransactions can be argued to be service games. I personally would not agree with that. I would personally say that, for example, if you buy, let me use a direct example again, Oblivion, and then you buy a DLC for Oblivion, you buy horse armor, and then you buy Knights of the Nine, I personally don't think that that's a service game. That's just a product, which then has an attachment. You buy an apple, and then you buy some caramel to go with the apple, right? Service game is a little bit of a different category. And again, reliant upon the service in order to be able to keep playing the game. That's probably the core definition. So now that I've defined what the hell a service game is, service games have been pushed a lot lately. Like, there's been more and more and more and more service games coming out, and has been being pushed all over the place. As someone in chat pointed out a minute ago, I think it was War Wager, almost everything on Battle.net right now is a service game. In fact, I think literally everything on Battle.net right now is a service game. We've got WoW, Diablo 3, Overwatch, Heroes of the Storm, Hearthstone, and StarCraft. So yeah, every game currently on Battle.net, on the Battle.net app, is a service game. So I say that to emphasize that a service game is not necessarily a bad thing, as long as it receives good service, as long as the support structure is there and is still trying to maintain it. However, we have already seen quite a few service games that have already discontinued and stayed discontinued and are basically not coming out anymore or playable. There are games that you cannot play anymore because they were either discontinued like an MMO or the servers stopped supporting it or whatever. In some cases, players have had to go and find custom servers or build their own servers in order to be able to play certain older service games because they were abandoned, because they were detrimented. So there is definitely some positives and some negatives to service-based games. Now, there has been a really big push towards service games in the last couple of years, like really big pushes towards that. Like it's like the big thing, because for whatever reason, most Fortune 500 company people who are interviewed, please note how I say that sentence, by the way, the people that are interviewed at Fortune 500 companies tend to be pushing lately the whole service games are better. The idea that, I'm trying to think, this is hard to parallel in analogy, but the general, I'll screw it, no analogies. The general concept is that you can make more of a margin, not necessarily more money, but more of a margin on your money if you sell a service game rather than a product game. Now, whether that's actually true or not is way more debatable, and generally actually relies on the individual circumstances. However, unfortunately, Blizzard is actually part of the problem here because a lot of those people, and I've read, I follow financial news, of course I do, I'm a huge finances geek. A lot of these Fortune 500 interviewees have been pointing towards Hearthstone and Overwatch in the last year as examples of why service games are better. What this has to do with BioWare is that they're making a new IP, and we know basically nothing about it. It is my prediction that this new IP will be a service game. That it will be another attempt to try and have you paying continuously in order to keep having the service, either subscription fees or microtransactions or whatever. There's plenty of ways in which service games rely on you continuing to pay money in over and over and over in order to be able to keep playing the game. We'll see. That's my prediction. I have it now on video for the third, I think, time today. I hope I'm wrong. Yeah, what SJ says is actually a great analogy. I should have thought of it. It's like an arcade game. Plunk quarters in. There we go. Because BioWare is an asset, Lord of Mordor. And assets exist to be expended. If you're EA. Also, do you mind giving me a direct link to a quote for that, Valvedrix? Because I haven't seen that personally. Granted, I haven't been following the new IP thing that closely. But yeah, maximum return on minimum work. This goes back to what I was talking about Seth MacFarlane earlier. Actually, now that I think about it. Seth MacFarlane. It's one of the reasons I like Seth MacFarlane is because he just wanted to make a really awesome show. At least when it comes to Cosmos. Multiplayer Neverwinter Nights. Co-op Neverwinter Nights was awesome. We're very pleased with the progress of our new action IP from BioWare. The design is stunning, gameplay mechanics are excellent, and the action will be exhilarating. The game is built around a live service, and through our creative process we decided to add more to the disruptive new social design for our players. To accommodate that, we are moving the launch date for this project into fiscal year 19, which could come out in 2020, by the way, for those of you not aware what that means. And by the way, what Raskor says is also true. Let me make this clear. A service game is not a bad thing any more than DLC is. Yes, I just said that. There's nothing wrong with DLC. What there is wrong with is when people abuse and misuse DLC for the purposes of greed. Yeah, I know, I don't know what to make of that quote, Deutsch. I am automatically now, I will admit, I am using service game in a negative connotation in this instance because it's from EA. And it is my prediction that what's going to happen is one of the worst examples of a service game, rather than one of the better examples of a service game. But for the purposes of definition, do please remember that there's nothing actually wrong with a service game, and it's just the same as there's nothing actually wrong with DLC. I want those definitions clear. I actually have two other things I wanted to talk about, but we're already at an hour and a half here, so I think I'll save those for next week. Good God. Yeah, we'll save those for next week. All I was going to talk about was story and fighting games, and talk about Injustice 2, and leveling. Both of those can wait till next week. So why don't we cut this off for our viewers at home?